The perfect life shatters. The letter that changed everything. Welcome to Twisted Heartstrings. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Please share which city you're watching from in the comments below. My name is Emma Clark, and I'm about to tell you how I discovered that the man I loved, the man I was going to marry, was living a lie so big it almost destroyed me. But this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about how I turned my pain into power and made sure he paid for every lie he ever told. It started on a Tuesday morning in September. I was 29 years old, working as a graphic designer in Chicago, living in a cozy apartment with my fiancé Daniel Reed. We'd been together for 2 years, and honestly, I thought I knew everything about him. He was charming, thoughtful, and made me laugh even on my worst days. We weren't rich, but we were happy. Or at least, I thought we were. That Tuesday, I received a letter from a law firm I'd never heard of. My hands shook as I opened it because letters from lawyers never bring good news. The words on the page seemed to blur together at first, but then 3 things became crystal clear. My Aunt Victoria had passed away, she had left me her entire estate, and I was now worth $10 million. $10 million. I had to sit down. I'd barely known Aunt Victoria. She was my father's older sister, a woman who'd made her fortune in real estate and lived alone in a mansion in Connecticut. We'd met maybe 5 times in my entire life. She'd sent birthday cards with crisp $100 bills inside, but we'd never been close. Why would she leave me everything? Daniel's sudden interest. When Daniel came home that evening, I was still in shock. I showed him the letter, and I'll never forget the look on his face. His eyes went wide, and for just a second, I saw something flash across his expression. It wasn't happiness for me. It was something else. Something hungry. But it vanished so quickly that I convinced myself I'd imagined it. "Baby, that's amazing," he said, pulling me into a hug. "This changes everything for us." Us. That word should have warmed my heart. But something about the way he said it made me uncomfortable. Over the next few days, Daniel became obsessed with the inheritance. He wanted to know every detail. How much exactly? When would I get it? What were my plans for it? He suggested we move the wedding date up. He thought we should start looking at bigger houses. He even mentioned that his business partner Michael had some incredible investment opportunities that could double our money. Our money. Not my money. Our money. "Daniel," I said one evening as we sat on the couch, "this inheritance is a bit overwhelming. I think I need to take some time to process it before making any big decisions." His jaw tightened, just for a moment. Then that charming smile returned. "Of course, babe. I just want to help you. This is a lot of responsibility for one person to handle. But I could handle it. I'd been handling my own finances since college. So why did he think I suddenly needed help?" The first crack in the mirror. The following week, Daniel suggested we open a joint bank account. "For the wedding expenses," he explained. "It'll make everything easier to track." I agreed because it seemed reasonable. We were getting married in 6 months. Combining some finances made sense. But then he asked me to add him as a co-owner on my investment accounts, just in case something happened to me. He said it was about making sure I was protected, but the lawyer in my head was screaming warnings I didn't want to hear. "Let me think about it," I told him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Daniel, listening to him breathe, and realized I was scared. Not of him exactly, but of this feeling that something wasn't right. The man I'd fallen in love with had been content with our simple life. He'd never pushed about money. He'd never been controlling. But now, ever since that letter arrived, he'd changed. Or maybe he'd finally shown me who he really was. I decided to talk to my friend Rachel, who worked as a financial advisor. Over coffee, I laid out everything that had happened. Rachel listened carefully, then said, "Emma, I'm going to give you some advice as your friend, not as a financial professional. Protect your assets. Don't put anyone's name on anything until after the wedding at minimum." And honestly, the fact that he's pushing this hard, this fast, would make me nervous. The woman at my door. 2 days later, everything changed again. I was at my office, working on a logo design for a client, when our receptionist called. "Emma, there's a woman here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent." The woman's name was Caroline Mitchell. She was about 35, dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, with tired eyes that had seen too much. She sat across from my desk and said the words that would destroy my world. "I need to talk to you about Daniel Reed. Or should I say, David Brennan." My mouth went dry. "I'm sorry, who?" "The man you're engaged to. Caroline said softly. His real name is David Brennan. And Emma, he's married. To my sister. I laughed. I actually laughed because it was so absurd. No, you're mistaken. Daniel and I have been together for 2 years. I think I'd know if he was married. Caroline pulled out her phone and showed me photos. Daniel, or David, or whoever he was, standing with a blonde woman and 2 small children. At a birthday party. At the beach. In front of a house I'd never seen. In every photo, he wore a wedding ring. A ring he never wore with me. How did you find me? My voice sounded strange, distant. I've been tracking him for months. When I saw the announcement of your engagement in the newspaper, I knew I had to warn you. Emma, my sister Rebecca has been married to him for 7 years. They have 2 kids together. And 2 months ago, she discovered he's been stealing from her, ruining her credit, and planning to disappear with whatever money he can take. The room spun. That's impossible. I've been to his apartment. I've met his friends. His apartment? Caroline's laugh was bitter. Let me guess, you've never stayed overnight there? He always has excuses for why you can't. She was right. Daniel had always insisted on staying at my place. He said his apartment was too small, too messy, that my place felt more like home. I thought it was sweet. The secret phone. That night, I pretended everything was normal. Daniel came over with Thai food, kissed me hello, and told me about his day. I studied his face, looking for the liar, the fraud, the married man. But I only saw the man I loved, or thought I loved. After dinner, Daniel went to take a shower. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. I'd never looked at his phone before. I trusted him completely. But Caroline's words echoed in my mind, and before I could stop myself, I picked it up. It was locked, but I knew his passcode. He told me it was my birthday. I typed it in, my hands shaking. The phone unlocked, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. Dozens of text messages from R with heart emojis. Miss you, honey. The kids are asking when you'll be home. Don't forget Lily's dance recital on Saturday. I made your favorite dinner. Love you. I scrolled through photos. Daniel with the blonde woman, Rebecca. Daniel holding a baby. Daniel at a Little League game. Daniel living an entire life I knew nothing about. I heard the shower turn off. Quickly, I put the phone back exactly where it had been. When Daniel came out, wrapped in a towel, I was sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. You okay, babe? He asked. I looked up at him. This man who'd held me when I cried about my aunt's death. Who'd proposed to me on a rooftop under the stars. Who'd promised me forever. I'm fine, I lied. Just tired. But I wasn't fine. I was shattered. And I was furious. The investigation begins. The next morning, after Daniel left for work, which now I questioned too, I called Caroline. Tell me everything. We met at a coffee shop far from my neighborhood. Caroline brought files, documents, and more photos. She laid out the timeline of Daniel's, no, David's, deception with heartbreaking detail. He met Rebecca 7 years ago, Caroline explained. They got married fast, had 2 kids. About 3 years ago, he told her he needed to travel for work. He'd be gone for weeks at a time. She believed him because he always came home eventually. But Emma, he wasn't traveling for work. He was with you. And probably others. Others? Caroline nodded grimly. Rebecca found evidence of at least 2 other women before you. He targets women who are independent, financially stable, and kind. He plays the perfect boyfriend until he can access their money. Then he disappears. But I haven't given him access to anything yet. Because you just got your inheritance. Emma, I think you were the long game. He spent 2 years building your trust, becoming part of your life, making you love him. And now that you have $10 million, he's finally making his move. I felt sick. Every memory, every moment, every kiss was now poisoned with doubt. Had any of it been real? What do I do? I whispered. Caroline reached across the table and took my hand. You could go to the police. But bigamy is hard to prove, and he's careful. He uses different names, different addresses. Or, she paused, you could help us take him down. How? Let him think his plan is working. Let him believe you're going to give him access to your money. And while he's distracted by the bait, we gather the evidence to destroy him. I thought about the photos on his phone, the children who called him daddy, the wife who'd been betrayed for 7 years. And I thought about the $10 million my aunt left me, money that would have made me an easy target for this predator. Something inside me shifted. The heartbreak was still there, but underneath it, something harder was forming, something sharp and focused. Tell me what to do, I said. Caroline smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd been waiting for backup in a war they'd been fighting alone. First, she said, you're going to need to meet Rebecca. Then we're going to plan the most satisfying revenge this man has ever seen. To be continued in part 2, the plan takes shape. Would you like to know what happens next? Comment yes below, and I'll continue the story. Don't forget to subscribe to Twisted Heartstrings for more dramatic stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Part 2. The plan takes shape. Meeting the other victim. Welcome back to Twisted Heartstrings. If you're just joining us, make sure to watch part 1 first. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Meeting Rebecca Brennan was like looking into a mirror that showed me what my future could have been. Caroline arranged for us to meet at her house, away from any place David might see us together. When Rebecca opened the door, I saw a woman who'd once been beautiful but now looked exhausted. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her eyes held the kind of sadness that comes from years of betrayal. You must be Emma, she said quietly. Please, come in. Her house was modest, but clearly a home filled with love. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. Toys were scattered in the living room. Photos of David. No, I had to remember, his name was David, hung on the walls with 2 adorable kids who had his eyes. I'm sorry you're going through this, Rebecca said as we sat at her kitchen table. I know how much it hurts. How long have you known? I asked. About you specifically? 2 months. But I've suspected he was cheating for about 3 years. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. At first, I thought it was just an affair. You know, the typical husband who strays. But then I started finding things. Credit cards and different names. A cell phone hidden in his car. Bank statements for accounts I didn't know existed. Caroline sat beside her sister, protective and angry. Tell her about the money. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. 2 years ago, my father died. He left me $300,000. Not millions like your inheritance, but enough to secure my kid's future. David convinced me to let him invest it. He said he had a business opportunity with his partner, Michael, that we could double the money. I trusted him. Emma, I trusted my husband. He stole it, I said flatly. Every penny. He moved it through shell companies, fake investments, businesses that don't exist. My lawyer says it's nearly impossible to trace. And he did it all while I was grieving my father. Her voice broke. While I was crying about losing my dad, he was stealing my dad's final gift to me. I felt my hands curl into fists. The man I'd loved, the man who'd held me and promised me the world, was a monster. But I needed to understand the full picture. How did he manage 2 lives? I mean, the logistics alone. Rebecca laughed bitterly. He's incredibly organized. With me, he's a project manager for a construction company. Long hours, frequent travel to job sites. With you, I'm guessing he has a different job? Sales consultant, I said. Flexible hours, works from home a lot. Of course. And I bet he told you he travels for conferences? I nodded, feeling foolish. Those were the nights he was here, with his family. Emma, he has an entire calendar system. Different phones, different email accounts, different identities. David Brennan is married to me. Daniel Reed is engaged to you. And God knows what other names he uses with other women. Other women? My stomach dropped. Caroline pulled out a file folder. After Rebecca discovered the truth, I started investigating. I'm a paralegal, so I know how to dig into records. I found 2 other women before you. Melissa Chun, who dated him for 18 months 3 years ago. He took $50,000 from her before disappearing. And Andrea Walsh, who he dated briefly 5 years ago. She got suspicious and confronted him, so he vanished before he could steal anything. The private investigator's report. I stared at the documents spread across Rebecca's kitchen table. Photos, bank statements, court records. Evidence of a man who'd made a career out of breaking hearts and stealing dreams. I want to hire a private investigator, I said suddenly. A good one. Someone who can find everything. His finances, his properties, his connections. Everything. That's expensive, Rebecca said softly. I met her eyes. I have $10 million, and I'm going to use some of it to make sure he pays for what he's done to you, to those other women, and to me. 3 days later, I sat in the office of Marcus Chun, a private investigator who'd been recommended by Caroline's law firm. He was in his early 40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a calm demeanor that made me trust him instantly. Miss Clark, he said, reviewing the information I provided. What exactly are you hoping to accomplish? I want to know everything about David Brennan, or Daniel Reed, or whatever his real name is. Every account, every property, every crime. And I want enough evidence to make sure he goes to prison. Marcus leaned back in his chair. That's ambitious. But based on what you've told me, I think it's possible. However, you need to understand something. Men like this are usually very careful. They know how to hide money, how to cover their tracks. Building a case that will actually hold up in court takes time and patience. I have both, I said firmly. What I don't have is any more room for this man to hurt people. All right then, let's get started. But Emma, I need you to promise me something. You keep acting normal around him. Don't let him know you suspect anything. Can you do that? Could I? Could I kiss the man who'd betrayed me? Could I laugh at his jokes and pretend to plan a future I knew was built on lies? Yes, I said. I can do whatever it takes. Playing the part. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of my life. Every morning, I woke up next to Daniel and had to pretend everything was fine. I let him kiss me goodbye. I discussed wedding plans. I even listened to his suggestions about investment opportunities without throwing my coffee in his face. At night, after he fell asleep, I would lie awake and study his face, trying to find the monster beneath the mask. But he just looked like Daniel. The man who brought me flowers for no reason. The man who remembered how I liked my coffee. The man who was destroying lives with the same hands that held mine. Marcus worked quickly. Within a week, he'd uncovered information that made my blood run cold. David Brennan wasn't just a con artist. He was part of a larger operation run by his business partner, Michael Torres. They targeted women from specific demographics, successful, independent, often with recent financial windfalls. Michael ran the money laundering side, while David did the relationship work. They've stolen over $5 million in the past 7 years, Marcus told me during one of our secret meetings. From at least 6 different women. But they're careful. The money moves through so many accounts and shell companies that victims usually can't recover it. And by the time the women realize what's happened, David has disappeared. Can we go to the police? Not yet. Everything I've found is circumstantial. We need concrete evidence. We need him to actually attempt to steal from you while we're watching. That's when the real plan began to form. Setting the trap. Rebecca, Caroline, Marcus, and I met at Caroline's apartment to strategize. It felt strange, sitting around a table with David's wife, planning to destroy the man we'd both loved. But there was something powerful about it too. We weren't victims anymore. We were hunters. Here's what I'm thinking, I said, spreading out my notes. David's goal is to get access to my inheritance. He's been pushing for joint accounts, for me to invest in Michael's fake business. What if I agree? That's dangerous, Marcus warned. Once money starts moving, it won't be real money, I interrupted. I'll set up new accounts that look legitimate but are actually controlled by my lawyer. I'll transfer what looks like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's really just numbers on a screen. Meanwhile, you document every transaction, every conversation, every lie. Caroline leaned forward. That could work, but you'd need to be convincing. David can't suspect anything. I can be convincing, I said, surprised by the steel in my own voice. I've been convincing for 2 weeks. I can do it longer. Rebecca spoke up quietly. What about the endgame? What's the final play? I smiled, and I knew it wasn't a kind smile. I'm going to throw him an engagement party. A big, beautiful celebration where he thinks he's finally secured everything. And that's where we'll destroy him. In front of everyone he's ever lied to. The performance begins. The next evening, I sat Daniel down with a bottle of wine and a serious expression. I've been thinking about what you said, I told him. About investing the inheritance. About our future. His eyes lit up with barely concealed excitement. Yeah, I want to be smart about this money. I don't want to just let it sit in an account. And you're right, you have more experience with investments than I do. The words tasted like poison, but I forced myself to keep going. I trust you, Daniel. I love you, and I want us to build something amazing together. He pulled me into his arms. Baby, that's wonderful. You won't regret this. But he would. Oh, he definitely would. Over the next week, I played my part perfectly. I met with Michael Torres, who was exactly as slimy as I'd imagined. He talked about ground floor opportunities and guaranteed returns with the confidence of a man who'd never been caught. I asked questions that made me sound naive but interested. I let them think they were reeling me in when really, I was the one holding the hook. Behind the scenes, Marcus was gathering evidence. He had cameras recording every meeting. He had forensic accountants tracking Michael's money trails. He had statements from Melissa and Andrea, the previous victims. And slowly, carefully, we were building a case. But the emotional toll was heavy. I found myself crying in my car after meetings with Daniel. I had nightmares about the life I'd thought I was going to have. My friend Rachel knew something was wrong, but I couldn't tell her the truth yet. I felt isolated, scared, and sometimes, in my weakest moments, I wondered if I should just walk away. Then I'd think about Rebecca's children, who'd been betrayed by their father. I'd think about Melissa, who'd lost her life savings. I'd think about all the women who might come after me if I didn't stop him. And I'd remember why I was doing this. The engagement party invitation. 6 weeks into the plan, with Marcus telling me we almost had enough evidence, I made my move. I want to throw an engagement party, I told Daniel over breakfast. A real celebration. I want to invite our friends, our families, and I want to officially announce our future together. That's a great idea, he said, though I noticed a flicker of something in his eyes. Nervousness? When were you thinking? 2 weeks from Saturday. I know it's fast, but I just got notice that I'll be receiving a large portion of the inheritance payment that week. I want to celebrate everything at once. The lie came easily now. I'd become a better actress than I ever thought possible. I also want to invite Michael, I continued, and maybe some of your other business associates. I've been thinking about investing $500,000 into that development project you mentioned. I'd love to meet everyone involved. David's eyes went wide. $500,000? For starters, if it works out like you say it will, I'm thinking about investing more. Maybe $1 million. I watched him try to contain his excitement. This was it. This was the moment he'd been working toward for 2 years. And he had no idea he was walking into a trap. Emma, he said, taking my hands, I love you so much. You're making me the happiest man alive. I smiled and kissed him, even though it made me want to be sick. I just want us to have everything, I said. Forever. Forever, he repeated. But forever was about to become 2 weeks. 2 weeks until his entire world came crashing down. 2 weeks until every lie, every manipulation, every crime came to light in front of everyone. I'd been broken. I'd been betrayed. But I wasn't a victim. I was a woman with a plan. And I was about to serve revenge as the main course at my engagement party. Part 3. Sweet Revenge and New Beginnings. The Perfect Trap. Welcome back to the final chapter of Emma's story on Twisted Heartstrings. This is it, the moment we've all been waiting for. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who loves a good revenge story. The grand ballroom at the Riverside Hotel looked like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across white-clothed tables decorated with roses and candles. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Champagne flowed freely. On the surface, it was the perfect engagement party for a couple celebrating their love and future. But I knew the truth. This beautiful event was actually an execution chamber, and David Brennan was about to face his judgment. I stood in the bridal suite, staring at myself in the mirror. I wore a stunning cream-colored dress that probably cost more than David had ever actually earned in a legitimate job. My hair was perfect. My makeup was flawless. I looked like a woman who had everything. Rebecca stood beside me, having helped me get ready. Over the past 2 months, she'd become more than David's other victim. She'd become my friend, my ally, and my courage when I wanted to back down. You look beautiful, she said softly. I feel like I'm going to be sick, I admitted. That's normal. What you're about to do takes incredible strength. She squeezed my hand. Emma, my kids are here tonight. Lily and Jake. They think they're just at a fancy party, but they're about to see their father's true face. Part of me wants to protect them from that, but the other part knows they deserve better than a father who's a criminal. Where are they now? With Caroline. They'll be brought in at exactly the right moment. Rebecca's eyes hardened. Let's make him pay for every lie. A knock on the door made us both jump. It was Marcus, dressed in a sharp suit, wearing a small earpiece. It's time, he said. The guests are all here. David and Michael just arrived. And Emma, the FBI agents are in position. They're posing as guests, but they're recording everything. FBI. The word still sent chills through me. Marcus had convinced federal authorities to get involved once he'd shown them the scope of David and Michael's operation. This wasn't just about my $10 million anymore. It was about years of fraud, money laundering, and multiple victims across state lines. Is everything ready? I asked. Marcus nodded. The presentation is loaded. The evidence is organized. And your attorney has legal guardians standing by for Rebecca's children, just in case things get complicated. Emma, are you absolutely sure you want to do this? I thought about the past 2 months. The lies I'd told. The kisses I'd faked. The nights I'd lain awake, pretending to sleep beside a monster. I thought about Rebecca's life savings, stolen while she grieved. About Melissa's dreams, crushed by a con man. About all the future victims David would claim if someone didn't stop him. I'm sure, I said firmly. Let's destroy him. The party begins. The ballroom erupted in applause when David and I entered together. 100 guests filled the space. Friends from my work, people from David's business network, family members, and at least a dozen undercover FBI agents I'd been briefed about. David didn't know it, but he was surrounded. He looked handsome in his tailored suit, playing the role of the devoted fiancé to perfection. He held my hand, smiled at guests, and accepted congratulations with humble grace. To everyone else, he was the luckiest man alive. If they only knew. Michael Torres stood near the bar, his expression slightly nervous. He'd been asking me about money transfers all week, eager to get his hands on what he thought was my inheritance. He had no idea that every fake transaction he'd processed was documented evidence of fraud. My friend Rachel approached us, hugging me tightly. Emma, this is gorgeous. I'm so happy for you. I hugged her back, feeling guilty that she didn't know the truth yet. Thank you for being here, Rach. It means everything. David's mother, a sweet woman named Patricia who I genuinely liked, kissed my cheek. Welcome to the family, dear. My son is so lucky to have found you. The irony was painful. Patricia had no idea her son was a bigamist and a thief. She was about to learn the truth alongside everyone else. For the first hour, everything proceeded like a normal engagement party. Dinner was served. Toasts were made. David held my hand throughout, occasionally kissing my temple, playing his part beautifully. I watched him lie to his own mother, laugh with friends he'd probably manipulated, and pretend to be someone he wasn't. And I smiled through all of it, counting down the minutes until his world ended. At exactly 8 p.m., I stood up and clinked my champagne glass to get everyone's attention. Excuse me, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here tonight to celebrate with Daniel and me. Your love and support means the world to us. I paused, letting the anticipation build. Daniel, sweetheart, would you join me up here? David stood, looking slightly confused but still smiling. He came to my side and wrapped his arm around my waist possessively. To the guests, we looked like the perfect couple. I wanted to do something special tonight, I continued. See, when I agreed to marry Daniel, I thought I knew everything about him. But over the past few months, I've learned so much more. And I wanted to share some of that with all of you. I nodded to the technician controlling the ballroom's projection screens. David's smile faltered slightly as 3 large screens lit up around the room. So, I made a little video presentation. Enjoy. The truth revealed. The screens showed a title card, The Many Lives of David Brennan. David's face went white. He tried to step away, but Marcus had quietly moved behind him, blocking his path. Michael started toward the exit but found 2 large men, FBI agents, standing in his way. The presentation began with photos. David with Rebecca and their children. David at their wedding 7 years ago. David's driver's license showing the name David Brennan. Then another license, another name, another identity. A murmur rippled through the crowd as people began to understand. What is this? Patricia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The video continued. Bank records showing transactions from Rebecca's accounts to shell companies. Court documents from his previous divorce. Statements from Melissa Chun and Andrea Walsh, his earlier victims. Phone records showing 2 different numbers, 2 different lives. And then came the recordings. My voice filled the ballroom, crystal clear. Daniel, are you sure about this investment? It's a lot of money. David's voice replied. Baby, trust me. Michael and I have done this 100 times. We'll triple your money in 6 months. Just sign the transfer papers. But what if something goes wrong? Nothing will go wrong. And even if it did, it's our money now. We're a team. Except the transfers were fake. The investment was fake. And Marcus had recorded everything. The screens now showed David with other women. Photos taken by Marcus's team over the past 2 months, showing David meeting with women he'd never mentioned to me. More targets. More potential victims. The ballroom had gone completely silent except for gasps and whispered conversations. People stared at the screens in horror, then at David, then back at the screens. "You're a liar," someone said loudly. David finally found his voice. "This is fake. This is all fabricated. Emma, what the hell are you doing?" "I'm telling the truth," I said calmly. "Something you've never done." That's when Caroline entered through the side door, holding the hands of 2 beautiful children. Lily was 5, with blonde curls. Jake was 7, with David's same brown eyes. "Daddy," Lily called out, pulling free from Caroline and running toward David. "Mommy said we could see you at the party." Rebecca entered behind them, and the room erupted in shocked conversation. David stood frozen, his face cycling through emotions: shock, fear, anger, and finally, pure rage. "You bitch," he hissed at me. "You lying manipulative." "I'm the liar?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's rich coming from a man with 2 names, 2 families, and a career built on destroying women. Patricia started crying. "David, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you're not married. Tell me those aren't your children." But David couldn't speak. He just stood there, watching his carefully constructed life burn to ashes around him. The arrest. Marcus stepped forward, showing his investigator credentials. "David Brennan, I've been documenting your activities for the past 2 months. You're looking at charges of fraud, identity theft, money laundering, and bigamy across multiple states." That's when the FBI agents revealed themselves. A woman in a black suit approached David with handcuffs. "David Brennan, you're under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and violation of federal identity theft statutes. You have the right to remain silent." Michael tried to run. He actually tried to make a break for the exit, but was tackled by 2 agents before he made it 10 feet. His arrest was more dramatic, complete with him shouting protests and threats that only made him look more guilty. The children were confused, crying. Rebecca knelt down, holding them, explaining in a gentle voice that Daddy had made some mistakes and had to go away for a while. Caroline and I stood with her, forming a protective circle around those innocent kids who didn't deserve any of this. David was being led away in handcuffs when he turned to look at me one last time. The charm was gone. The mask had shattered completely. What remained was just a small, pathetic man who'd finally been caught. "I loved you," he said, and for a moment, I almost believed he meant it. "No," I replied. "You love my money. You never knew me at all." As the FBI agents escorted David and Michael out of the ballroom, the guests stood in stunned silence. Then, slowly, something unexpected happened. My friend Rachel started clapping. Then someone else joined in. And another. Until the entire room was applauding. They weren't applauding the scandal or the destruction. They were applauding justice. They were applauding the women who'd fought back. Patricia approached me with tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. If I'd known, I would have." "You're not responsible for your son's choices," I said gently. "None of us are." She hugged me tightly, then went to Rebecca, apologizing profusely, asking about her grandchildren she'd never known existed. It was messy and complicated, but there was something beautiful about it too. Truth, finally, after years of lies. 6 months later. The trial lasted 3 months. David and Michael both tried to cut deals, but the evidence was overwhelming. Phone records, video footage, financial documents, testimony from 7 different victims. They were convicted on all counts. David got 12 years in federal prison. Michael got 8. Their assets were seized and distributed among their victims. Rebecca got back most of what was stolen from her. Melissa Chun recovered her $50,000 plus interest. And me? I never lost a penny because I'd never trusted him with real money in the first place. But the real victory wasn't financial. I stood in the courtroom when the verdict was read, and I felt something shift inside me. The fear was gone. The doubt was gone. I'd been betrayed by someone I loved, but I hadn't let it destroy me. I'd fought back, and I'd won. Rebecca and I remained close friends. She moved to a new apartment, started therapy for herself and her kids, and began rebuilding her life. Her children were resilient, adapting better than we'd hoped. They didn't understand everything yet, but they knew they were safe and loved. As for me, I'd taken a leave of absence from my graphic design job to deal with the trial and its aftermath. I started seeing a therapist to process the trauma of being deceived so completely. Some days were harder than others. Some nights, I'd still wake up feeling like I'd been naive, stupid, easily fooled. But then I'd remember, I wasn't the villain in this story. I was the hero. I used part of my inheritance to start a foundation helping victims of financial fraud. We provided legal resources, financial counseling, and emotional support for people who'd been targeted by con artists like David. Within 6 months, we'd helped 43 people recover stolen money and get justice. Rachel stuck by me through everything, as did my book club friends and colleagues from work. I learned that real love, real friendship, doesn't disappear when things get difficult. It shows up. It stays. It supports. One afternoon in March, I was at a coffee shop, working on promotional materials for the foundation, when someone sat down across from me. It was Marcus Chun, the private investigator who'd helped bring David down. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Of course not. What brings you here?" "I was in the neighborhood and saw you through the window. Thought you might need a coffee." He slid 1 cup toward me. "How are you doing?" "Really?" I considered the question. "I'm okay. Some days are better than others. But I'm healing." "You did an incredible thing, Emma. What you pulled off at that party, the way you documented everything, the courage it took to keep pretending for 2 months. Most people couldn't do that."